All right, so there you go. The president today, the big Oval Office meeting, everybody was so curious to hear what he was going to say. At that point, the markets were not doing as bad as a lot of people had expected. Something today warded off what everyone said was going to be a Black Monday, and we thought that the Dow was going to drop 2,000 or 3,000 points again. The NASDAQ actually ended up higher today, as you look at where the indices all wound up, which was something else. So there you have it. We've got Steve Forbes here, brilliant economist on the set with us to talk about exactly what happened today. As you see it, everybody thought it was going to be really bad. The Asian markets really got crushed. Somehow the United States didn't fare too bad. Why is that?
What happened was, became clear the administration was willing to negotiate on these things. And so therefore they weren't fixed in stone. And so he'd already authorized during the day Treasury Secretary Besson and the trade representative to start talking to negotiators with Japan. I think that was the signal, okay, this thing can be ameliorated. Yeah. And when the markets see hope, they begin to respond positively. If nothing had been done, you would have seen a big crash. But the president indicated that what he did last Tuesday, well, maybe that can be changed if you make a good deal with us.
You make a good point, and I think that's what a lot of people thought was that, oh, okay, he sounded very pragmatic when he was sitting there with Netanyahu in the Oval Office. But at the same time, he also talked about how amazing tariffs were 100 years ago, and how he dreams of a time when we had no income tax and tariffs was everything. Well, what do you make of that?
Well, we all dream of a time when we didn't have the income tax, and we didn't have the Federal Reserve, and things like that. Yeah. But those days are long gone. What really boosted the United States in the 1800s is that we had a small government, we had low taxes, and less regulation. Yeah. Even in 1929, before the Depression, the total size of the federal government, and this was the most sophisticated, complicated economy in the world, was 3%. Right. States 10%. So 13% of spending. Today it's 36%. It's a huge burden on the economy. And that's what hopefully the Muscovites are beginning to whack back.
What do you make of, I mean, he very much idealizes, was it McKinley that gave us the tariffs? And then it was 140, 150 years ago. He very much sees all of that in a very positive light. Was it as brilliant as he thinks it was?
Well, what William McKinley really did was stop an inflationary push in the 1890s, eventually led by William Jennings Bryan of the Democrats, that wanted an effective 50% devaluation of the dollar. McKinley said, no, the dollar is going to be as good as gold, formally did that in legislation. And when the dollar was stable, which had really been frightening people, where the dollar was going to go in the tank, the economy took off. And then McKinley said words that might sound familiar today. Yeah. He talked about reciprocal trades. The U.S. had tariffs. That was the main revenue raiser. He talked about maybe reducing them with other countries. Yeah. Unfortunately, he was assassinated, but McKinley was going in the right direction.
Right. We want to bring in economist Steve Moore. A little bit late, but I know you've had a really busy day, Steve. Thanks for popping on with us. Just give us your insight into what we saw today. Obviously, Black Monday didn't happen. It got better as the day went along. Why?
Yeah, I think what happened was that in the morning, we were down about 1,000 points. And then Trump made this declaration that any revenues raised from the tariffs would be used to offset other Steve Forbes type of tax cuts, like lower tax rates on income and maybe payroll tax cuts. And that, I think, had a very positive effect on the market. I'm hearing from my source in the White House that there's something like 75 nations now that have been getting on that phone with Trump, making the phone call, saying they want to make a deal. That's, I think, what we'd all love to see. Let's get this over with. I hate bear markets. I hate this idea that it's Wall Street versus Main Street. We all benefit from a strong market. And so I think in the end of the day, this could work out in a way that leads to freer and fairer trade, which is, I know, what we'd all like to see.
And Steve Moore, just staying with you for 1 second, do you believe that, that Trump could get the leverage, make these better deals happen, and in a week or so, we could be in a very positive place and feeling very good? Is that what you think is going to happen?
I'm praying that that's happening, because I don't want to. Look, I hate bear markets. People lose a lot of money. But let me put it like this. I would never bet against Donald J. Trump. He's an incredible negotiator. I think he's playing the hand right now. I think, I want to have, I like the reciprocal tariffs. I don't like some of these, tariffs on autos and things like that. I don't think they really work too well. But if we can force other countries to lower their tariffs, then I think we get more international trade, and that's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, and Steve Forbes, finally to you. I mean, you don't believe that he has a plan for just tariff city and changing kind of the whole way that this government brings in revenue?
That's going to have to be done through negotiation of putting a plan on the table, and like starting with a flat tax, simplifying the code and taking more people off the income tax code. That's the way to go. And I think if that's the plan, I think that will roll out. But in the meantime, we got to get through this. Vietnam, I think, has indicated it'll accept 0% tariffs across the board. So let's start having some of that and get rid of these. Tariff is a tax. You get rid of taxes, that's a good thing.
China is the real big,
well, that's in a category by itself. But I think the rest of the world, we can go in a very positive direction very quickly. Maybe even Beijing will decide there are other ways to move ahead rather than bashing us and bashing themselves even more.
Understood. Steve Forbes and Steve Moore, good to see you guys. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt Tonight on Newsmax.